welcome to another video. In today's video, I'll do a walkthrough of my newest Roombox based on the book The Borrowers by Mary Norton. Mary Norton published the book The Borrowers in 1952, and 4 more books in the series followed. They are The Borrowers Afield, The Borrowers Afloat, Aloft, and Avenged, published in 55, 59, 61, and 82 respectively. All are available on Kindle, and if you have never read the whole series or only saw the modern films, I highly suggest that you check out the books. They all follow a family of tiny people called borrowers who live by borrowing food and other items from humans and nature. They live hidden in homes, and here I've created 2 rooms so far of the home of Pod, Homily, and Arietti Clock. I tried to stick as close as I could to the book, and this project is different from other miniatures projects because instead of making items that look like replicas of real, human-sized items, we're looking for the items that the borrowers would borrow and use as stated in the book. Mostly everything I used I either had or got at an antique mall. The book takes place sometimes around the very late 1800s to early 1900s, so I didn't want to use items that looked too modern. Why I used a top-down versus diorama configuration. The clocks live under the kitchen floor of a house in England between the floor joists. So the floor joists would be their walls, and the underneath of the kitchen floor would be their ceiling. This wooden box is about as wide as the space between 2 joists. I used a cigar box up on end as a room divider between the kitchen and living room, even though in the book they don't really talk about how they're divided. And we're looking down into their home as if we would look down after prying up the kitchen floor to see what was underneath. I chose a German all-bisque doll for Arietti, and you can see that here. And then I chose an odd kind of early plastic and I guess composite-ish, almost fiber or paper mache looking face doll for Homily, who's the mother. And I haven't yet found a doll for Pod, so we'll just assume he's out borrowing right now. I've temporarily indicated the doorways for the drawing room and kitchen with black paper, and I will cut these doorways out later once I have my art studio set up and have access to my tools. Rather than explaining each item that's in the room, I thought I would read portions of the book that describe what the clock's home looks like. The Borrowers by Mary Norton. And under this clock, below the wainscot, there was a hole. It was Pod's hole, the entrance to his home. Not that his home was anywhere near the clock, far from it. There were yards and yards of dark and dusty passageways with wooden doors between the joists and metal gates to keep out the mice. Arietti, rolling the potato before her from the storehouse down the dusty lane under the floorboards, kicked it ill-temperedly so it rolled rather fast into the kitchen, where Homily was stooped over the stove. "There you go again," exclaimed Homily, turning angrily. "Nearly pushed me into the soup, and when I say potato, I don't mean the whole potato. Take the scissor, can't you, and cut off a slice." "Oh, what does it matter?" said Arietti. "There are plenty more." "That's a nice way to talk," exclaimed Homily, turning angrily. "Plenty more. You do realize," she went on gravely, laying down the half-nail scissor, "that your poor father risks his life every time he borrows a potato?" "I meant," said Arietti, "that there are plenty more in the storeroom." "Well, out of my way now," said Homily, bustling around again. "Whatever you meant, and let me get the supper." Arietti wandered through the open door into the sitting room. The fire had been lighted, and the room looked bright and cozy. Homily was proud of her sitting room. The walls had been papered with scraps of old letters out of waste paper baskets, and Homily had arranged the handwriting in vertical stripes which ran from floor to ceiling. On the walls, repleted in various colors, were postage stamps, borrowed by Pod some years ago from the stamp box on the desk in the morning room. There was a lacquer trinket box padded inside and with the lid open, which they used as a settle. And I've used one here using some collar studs and beads as legs. And that useful standby, a chest of drawers made from matchboxes. There was a round table made from the wooden bottom of a pillbox supported on the carved pedestal of a knight from the chess set. The knight itself, its bust so to speak, stood on a column in the corner where it looked very fine and lent that air to the room which only statuary can give. Beside the fire stood Ariette's library. This was a set of those miniature volumes that Victorians loved to print, but to Ariette seemed the size of very large Bibles. Ariette had learned to read from these books and to write by leaning sideways and copying the writings on the walls. In spite of this, she did not always keep her diary, although on most days she would take the book out for the sake of the saying, which would sometimes comfort her. "What are you doing, Ariette?" called Homily from the kitchen. "Writing my diary." "Oh," exclaimed Homily shortly. "What did you want?" asked Ariette. She felt quite safe. Homily liked her to write. She encouraged any form of culture. Homily herself, poor ignorant creature, could not even say the alphabet. "Oh, nothing, nothing," said Homily crossly, banging away with the pot lids. "It'll do later." Ariette took out her pencil. It was a small white pencil with a piece of silk cord attached, which had come off a dance program. But even so, in Ariette's hand, it looked like a rolling pin. "Ariette!" called Homily again from the kitchen. "Yes." "Put a little something on the fire, will you?" Ariette braced her muscles and heaved the book off of her knees and stood it upright on the floor. They kept the fuel, assorted slack and crumbled candle grease, in a pewter mustard pot and shoveled it out with a spoon. These adorable little sugar tongs, because I needed a really good excuse to buy adorable little antique sugar tongs. I only paid $2 for them. It was a charming fireplace made by Ariette's grandfather with a cogwheel from the stables as part of an old cider press. The spokes of the cogwheel stood out in starry rays, and the fire itself nestled in the center. I couldn't find a cog, but this part of an old brass oil lamp reminded me of the description of the starry rays. Above, there was a chimney piece made from a small brass funnel. An arrangement of pipes from the spout of the funnel carried the fumes into the kitchen flues above. Homily would simmer soup on the spokes in a silver thimble, and Ariette would broil nuts. How cozy those winter evenings could be. Ariette, her great book on her knees, sometimes reading aloud. Pod at his last. He was a shoemaker and made button boots out of kid gloves. And Homily, quiet at last with her knitting. Homily knitted their jerseys and stockings on black-headed pins and sometimes on darning needles. A great reel of silk or cotton would stand table high beside her chair, and sometimes if she pulled too sharply, the reel would tip up and roll away out of the door into the dusty passage, and Ariette would be sent after it. The floor of the sitting room was carpeted with deep red blotting paper, which was warm and cozy and soaked up the spills. Homily would renew it at intervals when it became available upstairs. Homily liked things which saved washing, because drying things was difficult under the floor. Water they had in plenty, hot and cold, thanks to Pod's father, who had tapped the pipes from the kitchen boiler. They bathed in a small tureen, which once held pâté de foie gras. The soap, too, a great cake of it, hung on a nail in the scullery, and they scraped pieces off. There isn't a lot of detail about the kitchen itself in the book, other than the mention of eating off of coins, cooking or washing in aspirin lids, etc. I made a dish rack from in the cigar box from toothpicks, and then I added another matchbox dresser underneath there. And I used some dollhouse accessories like baskets and a galvanized wash tub. And then I made a mop out of macrame cord and a skewer, and a broom out of some actual straw from a real broom and another skewer. I found this pewter thing, and instantly it reminded me of a little sink basin, antique store. And then this soapstone box, minus the lid, doubles as a tub. The brush in the tub is from the dollar store. It's like a makeup brush, and I just cut the handle off. And the mirror is from the enamel trinket box that I used as the settee. I used various pieces of scrap wallpaper in the kitchen, and I used a metal spice tin for the stove. A crown cap was glued to a skeleton key to make a skillet. And you see the half nail scissor mentioned hanging there. Here's the spoon that they used to shovel the coal into the kitchen stove. Oh, sorry. Down there. And then I also have a little piece of broken hacksaw blade, which I figured they could use to cut things with as well. The emerald watch is a brooch that I glued a watch face to, and those are both from an antique store. And then I just put a little piece of chain on the back to hang it. The eyebrow comb mentioned is represented by that spoolie hanging on the wall there. And that's it for now. Have you read The Borrowers or seen the various film adaptations? If you've read the book, did you read the whole series? Let me know in the comments below. I plan on doing the bedroom and storage room in the future, but I have some other projects to share with you in the coming weeks. If you have any questions about any of the things that you see here, just let me know and I'd be happy to answer them in the comments. I'm also planning that 1,000 subscriber giveaway coming up in February. We're hard at work renovating our new house right now, and we've run into a couple of little problems that we didn't anticipate. So it's kind of hard for me to create anything here at my in-laws' house, but I do have all the supplies waiting for me to get the bedroom areas done for this finished part of the Borrowers project. So I'll get on a regular posting schedule soon, and I'll keep you updated as I go along so that you know when we're all moved into our house and you can see my new studio and everything else. Take care, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.